Born Wicked, Blood Rose Nights Book 4, written by Keary Taylor, narrated by Raven Wildwood. Chapter 9. There are no words for how the next 18 hours feel. Anger, pain, sadness. Ingrid has been dead for 29 years, but I go through the entire grief cycle after John and I get the news about her being cremated. The rest of the day is numb shock, and it feels kind of lonely. Since I never told John about the necromancer and my hope to bring my mother back, I'm going through an entirely different kind of grief than he is. I'm used to things being taken away from me in my life. But this felt like a deeper stab in the gut. We drive back to the airport just as silently as we'd driven to town. We go to the counter and change our flights to one that leaves in 2 hours. Each lost in our own thoughts and pain, we wait silently at the gate. We load on the plane, and we fly back to Chicago. It's the middle of the night when we land, which is the middle of a vampire's actual day. This airport is far busier than the one in Kansas. We quietly push our way through the crowd and make our way to the L train and board. I look at John sitting across from me. His eyes are fixed on the ceiling. His lips are downturned. He picks at a cuticle mindlessly. And suddenly, I realize just how lucky I am. For 29 years, I had no one. I dreamed that someday my dad would return and take care of me. And now he has. He is the only person on this planet who can marginally understand the grief I feel. And he's here. He's not going anywhere. Others might leave me. Friendships might ebb and flow, and romantic relationships can obviously fall apart in the blink of an eye. But family? My blood? John is going to be there for me no matter what. A person like me shouldn't have that kind of trust. But sometimes your gut just knows. Maybe we all have the gift of precognition. Because I know. I switch seats to the one right next to him, take his hand, and lay my head on his shoulder. "Thank you," I say, my voice a little rough after such an emotional day. "Thank you for finding me, for being who you are." He presses his lips to the top of my head once before laying his cheek there. "Thank you for not hating me for taking so long." And it's comforting. It's comfortable. Existing in love, in peace, holding on to each other in hard times. We ride back downtown just like that, letting each other feel what we feel. I get off the train first. John is still staying at Roman's secret church until he finds a place of his own. So I wave goodbye just before I get off at my stop. I take the 3-minute walk back to my building and ride the shaky elevator up to my floor. And even though I've only been gone for a day and a half, it still feels good to be home when I walk in. If only I could actually call it a day. I leave my bag at the foot of my bed and walk back out the door. It's utterly dark outside tonight. And cold. It's a wet cold. Thick clouds hang overhead, threatening to rain or snow at any minute. I tug my coat tighter around me and walk faster down the sidewalk. I see the underbelly of Chicago on nights like this. There are homeless people hiding out under eaves. Drug deals take place in the shadows. It's rare to see a woman out in the night like this. It's just not safe. The police roll down the streets slowly, searching the shadows. I know I look suspicious. I'm walking too fast. It's the middle of the night and wicked cold. But I keep my eyes level, my chin held high like I have nothing to hide. Except what I'm going to do is take care of something very illegal that I've permitted. Things get quieter when I get to the industrial side of town. Workers won't start arriving for several more hours. The trains aren't rolling through right now. There are no welders running or forklifts squealing against dead weight. My heart rate picks up when I spot the old warehouse. It looks just as cold and depressing as the last time I saw it. The door is unlocked when I try it. A long corridor of doors stretches out in front of me, and I walk on silent feet toward the end. My plan was very poorly made as I came here. I know what the right thing to do is, but how best to execute my plan when the man involved isn't a very good person? I break the knob getting inside the door and walk in, pushing it closed behind me. "Who is it?" a startled voice asks in the dark. I flick on the dim light for his benefit and find Marcus Lontalk, the necromancer, lying on his cot, shielding his eyes. I should say something. Should have words for this man who's done some pretty unspeakable things. But I find myself just looking at him, silently wishing I was coming to him under different circumstances. We all have strengths. Gifted, vampire, or not, everyone has something special and unique to them. Marcus can literally bring people back from the dead. Think of the good he can do with that gift. Instead, he used it to bring back a murderer. "What do you see for your future?" I ask, finally. Marcus stares at me, his booted legs stretched out before him. The bruises are all gone. The only evidence of the injuries he sustained from Roman tackling him out a second story is his leg. "When you get out of here, where will you go?" "Didn't have much reason to believe I was ever getting out of here," he says darkly, looking at me with resentment in his eyes. "Imagine it for a second," I say coolly, with the shrug of one shoulder. He holds my gaze for a second, and I can tell he knows I'm testing him. I hold the upper hand. Marcus's gift might be exceptional, but against me, if it came to hand, I could rip him to pieces in seconds. He wouldn't stand against me for even a breath. "I have extended family in both India and Germany," he says, surprising me. I had wondered at his ancestry before. "Gifts run in both sides of my family. I have questions for some of those who have passed on." Sounds innocent enough, except that I don't know what gifts those dead family members possessed. But is it really my job to police the world? "Are you planning on doing shitty stuff like running with Archer King again?" I ask, folding my arms over my chest. He's confused, and I can tell he's struggling to keep up with my line of thought. I know I'm not making a ton of sense. When you're not always sure you're a good person, are you really fit to dole out evaluations of others? "Look, my conscience isn't going to allow me to let you rot in here for the rest of my days. Turns out, my mother was cremated, and we'll never recover her ashes. So now, it's up to me to decide what the hell to do with you. But the reality is that you've done some pretty bad stuff in your life. So, I don't know exactly what to do right now. Morals, sometimes they make your life a little inconvenient." "So, wrong answers and you'll rip me apart, I assume?" he sneers. "You're really not making this any easier," I say with an exasperated sigh. "Look, I'm thinking it's easiest to just put you on a one-way flight to Germany and let them deal with your nonsense. I don't think you're a good person, but I also don't think I have it in me to kill you. So I think I just have to settle on making you someone else's problem." "Fine by me," he says, hope and excitement creeping into his tone. "Ugh, I really, really hope I'm not making a mistake." I pull my phone from my pocket, hit his name, and hold the phone to my ear. "How's Kansas?" Roman answers. "It sucked pickled balls, but I'm actually home now," I answer, keeping an eye on Marcus. "Question, do you have any way to get a fake ID and passport in a matter of, say, hours?" "Of course," he says. "What for?" "It's time I dealt with the necromancer," I answer, watching as Marcus gets up and hobbles to the shelf with his things. He pulls a shirt on and sorts through the contents. "I've settled on banishment. How's that for my first night councilwoman decision? Let's hope it's not one that comes back to bite us in the ass, Roman says. I can have the passport in an hour. Meet me at the airport, I instruct, and end the call. Pack your bag, corpse groper. You're going to Germany. An hour and 10 minutes later, I'm back at the airport for the second time in just a few hours. Marcus stands at my side with the aid of crutches, looking rather nervous. He knows what I'm capable of. He knows if he tries to run, I'll be on him in a second. So, he's a good, cooperative little necromancer. When Roman walks through the doors, searching the space for me, I smile in relief. Roman eyes him darkly as he walks toward us. For a few weeks, Roman thought he was dead. Till I fessed up to what Sebastian did. When will it end? Having to clean up Sebastian's messes. He give you any problems? Roman asks, never once taking his eyes from Marcus. He's been a perfect, silent little prisoner, I answer with a smile. Roman hands the passport and ID to Marcus, and all three of us walk to the ticket counter together. A good chunk of money later, Marcus has a ticket to India. I changed my mind at the last second. Seemed like a good idea to throw the man off. We'll know if you don't get on your connecting flight, Roman warns Marcus as we walk him to his gate. His 7 a.m. flight leaves in only a few minutes. So, don't go getting any ideas. You'll get out of the States, or I won't be as forgiving as Juliet. Got it, he mutters, and I'm reminded that he is only 24 years old. He might be bitter and terrible, but he's still little more than a kid. Wordlessly, Roman and I stand and wait until they load the plane. Marcus glances back at us just once before he disappears into the crowd as they shuffle onto the aircraft. Kansas didn't go how you wanted? Roman asks, half an hour later as we watch the plane pull away from the terminal and finally take off. A sigh escapes me as we turn and walk away. No, my mother didn't get buried after all. She ended up being cremated. There is a silence between us for a beat. I'm really sorry, Juliet. Yeah, me too, I say. I can't go deep into this right now. It's still too raw, still too fresh. Anything dramatic happen while I was gone? It seems like half a miracle, but no, he answers. I look over at him to see a smile forming in one corner of his mouth. Small miracles. Thank goodness they come around every now and then, I say, as I step around a group of people stopped in the middle of the hall. It's getting busier by the moment. My phone vibrates in my back pocket. I pull it out to see it's a number I don't recognize from here in Chicago. This is Dr. Doe, I answer as we make our way back toward the L. Juliet, a familiar voice comes through the other line. Superintendent Teresa Day. You and I need to talk. Really? I ask, barely resisting an eye roll. You haven't charged me with anything. When are you going to stop harassing me? Oops. I know I've shot my mouth off too quickly the second the words come out. I need you at my office in 30 minutes or I will come to you, she says coldly, and the line goes dead. Oh, shit, I hiss as I put the phone back in my pocket. The day just keeps getting worse. I think you should call your lawyer, Roman says as we ride the escalator down and climb into the train. Yeah, I groan, once again pulling my phone. Just great. I hate this depressing place. Seriously, Superintendent Day could spruce the place up a bit. The drab space makes my skin crawl the second I walk into it. Do you understand what you're doing when you keep dragging me in here? I bark. My eyes meet Teresa's, and I know already that I'm dangerously close to turning back into the reckless Juliet who landed herself in juvenile detention. Do you know what I do for a living? Do you understand the suffocating weight and difficulty it is to keep that hospital going? I'm trying to save lives, Superintendent, and you keep dragging me in here when you have no reason to. Roman's hand lands on my shoulder, and he none too gently guides me down into a seat. It's a clear message: calm the hell down. He sits in the chair beside me, and to the untrained eye, he might look relaxed, but he's ready to detain me if I snap. I thought we had things settled, Silvano says as he stands in the corner of the room. This is still an open investigation, she explains to him in a very calm yet very condescending tone. Until Sebastian Vincent is found, or until we have a body, it is my job to keep asking as many questions as needed until he's back home safe and sound. What is it now? I ask, anxious to get this over with. I need to get out of here before I do something stupid. I've interviewed quite a few people at that hospital. She dives in. And I keep getting the same story over and over, that you and Sebastian were a match made in heaven. Everyone says they couldn't imagine a better paired couple. I know you said Sebastian began stalking you, but from what people say, from the look in your engagement announcement, she says as she slides the news article and the accompanying picture across her desk toward me, I am not sure I should have been so quick to take your word for it. Are we victim blaming now? Roman growls. This is looking dangerously close to libel, Silvano warns. I also received reports that Sebastian Vincent announced to the majority of his staff that your word was as good as his, she says, and I see it in her eyes that she thinks this is the smoking gun. They report that he gave you equal power in that hospital. Damn, Sebastian did do that. Do you have any paperwork that shows Sebastian giving Juliet legal authority? Silvano says, his tone low, a warning. A man in love may say anything, but until it's on paper, nothing is binding. A man in love still went before his entire staff and told them they were to listen to Juliet, as though she were the owner, Teresa says, her own voice lowering. Sebastian Vincent is reported to be serious, intense, and professional. What he does not seem to be is the type to resort to stalking. So forgive my doubt, Dr. Doe, but I am not sure I buy that as the reason you ended things. Not when all that power had been placed at your fingertips. Not when you were frequenting a certain nightclub without your fiancé's knowledge. Her eyes slide over to Roman, and she looks at him intently. She thinks I was cheating on Sebastian with Roman. Juliet could end her relationship with Dr. Vincent for any reason, Silvano says, bristling at the implications. No matter what you are implying. But Dr. Doe here has tried to clear her name in his disappearance with unsubstantiated claims about Dr. Vincent's behavior, Teresa says, cold and low. It seems backpedaling is necessary. You have no idea what you're doing, Roman growls. Juliet is cleaning up his messes. She is saving lives. Yet you keep dragging her in here. And who knows who is going to need her while you're throwing misled accusations. His tone is rising, and there's a little alarm that starts going off in the back of my brain. He's angry. That savage I've witnessed before is rising up, ready to terrify all around him. Juliet is everything Sebastian could never be. He reaches into his pocket and withdraws his phone. Your hero worship is a complete joke. He pulls up a saved video, and my blood chills when I realize what he's showing Superintendent Day. It's the camera footage from when Sebastian trashed my apartment. On the screen, we see Sebastian going through my computer before he smashes it against a wall. He goes through my bedroom. He returns to the kitchen and proceeds to smash every dish. He tips the fridge over. Where are you, Juliet? He says on the tiny screen in a nearly demonic voice. Sometimes people are different behind closed doors than they are in the public eye, Roman says darkly. My insides are tight. My hands want to shake, and probably would if I were human. Watching that video the first time was horrific. It was terrifying. Seeing it again. The video ends, and Roman slips his phone back into his pocket. He is breathing hard, his eyes intense as he stares at the superintendent. Teresa sits there in silence for an entire minute. I can see the gears in her head spinning. On paper, I should be the guilty party on every front. Her gut tells her I have something to do with his disappearance. But now that she's seen the evidence of what he's really like, now that she's seen that I wasn't lying about his scary behavior, now what? You say his behavior had been going on like this for a while? She asks. Her eyes don't quite meet mine. I nod. It was a few days before this that I found out he had paid someone to follow me at all hours. I couldn't go back to my apartment after that. I was too scared to tell him where I was. And where did you go? She asks. Neither Roman nor I say anything immediately. I try not to, but my eyes shift over to Roman's, and Teresa doesn't miss it. Juliet and I might not have gotten along for most of the time we've known each other, Roman says, being very careful with his words. But I wasn't going to let Sebastian do something stupid. I told Juliet she could come stay with me. Too many people are beginning to think that Roman and I were having an affair. Sebastian believed so, and he killed Roman for it. Superintendent Day now fully assumes it. Roman was wise to point out that we couldn't stand each other in the beginning. But him getting so angry and protective just a few minutes ago, it's not going to help anything. And what was your relationship with Dr. Vincent like, Mr. DeLuca? She asks, fixing him with her eyes. Roman's gaze hardens. We were associates. We weren't friends. But I wouldn't have called us enemies either. Wouldn't have. Past tense, Teresa points out. You need to stop leading this investigation based on assumption, Superintendent Day, Silvano says. Good police work is based on facts and proof. Unless you have hard proof, you need to stop harassing my clients, or you'll be looking at a lawsuit against the Chicago PD. A prominent man is missing, Teresa says, and if looks had a physical manifestation, Silvano would be a frozen block of ice. It is my job to make sure he is safe and sound. Then follow the evidence, Silvano says. He straightens, turns, and opens the door. Until you have evidence that my clients had anything to do with Dr. Vincent and his temper tantrum, I request you leave them be. All too anxious to get out of there, I don't wait for Teresa to argue further. I scramble from my chair and follow Silvano out the door, immediately followed by Roman. Chapter 10. That was a mistake, showing her that video, Silvano says in a low voice as we walk through the building. As far as I know, it's the only actual evidence related to the case she's seen. I'm not just going to let that woman keep pointing fingers at Juliet when that bastard is the one who did everything wrong, Roman says between clenched teeth. Just be careful, Silvano says as we all step outside, pulling our sunglasses on. It's an unusually bright day, considering it's January. That woman thinks you and Juliet were having an affair, and she may now think you took Sebastian out so the two of you could be together. Damn it, Roman, I say in annoyance. I could have handled it. You didn't have to drag yourself into this. He shakes his head at me. Facts are facts, Juliet. She can follow the evidence. We know what actually happened. I hate this, I say, shaking my head. It's bad enough what Sebastian did to me, the fallout I'm dealing with. But you didn't do anything but try to help me. I'm sorry this is creating so much trouble for you. Roman grabs my shoulder. There's something hesitant about it, but once it's there, he squeezes confidently. It'll be fine, Juliet. Everything is going to get sorted out. All the anger and danger he was radiating just moments ago is softening by the moment. I just keep making your life more complicated, don't I say. It was meant to come out sarcastic. Instead, it leaves my lips regretful and deadly serious. I think you know my life has been nothing but complicated, Roman says, sincerity in his voice. You don't get to take all the credit. And it brings a little laugh from my lips, and then a sigh. Okay, well, I guess we just cross our fingers and hope this goes away? Until she comes back with something hard, evidenced, I will keep her away, Silvano promises. Until the dust settles, I suggest the two of you try to stay out of trouble. Not another word. The well-dressed, extremely old vampire turns and walks away. My phone vibrates, and I pull it out to find a text from Holly. Blood work is clear. Thought you'd want to know right away. Finally, I breathe out. The last traces of the toxins are out of our test subject's blood. And none too soon, Roman says, looking around him at the busy streets. I'm starving. As soon as he says the words, a fire ignites in my throat, racing all the way down into my stomach. Now that you bring it up. My eyes are scanning the crowd. They're looking down alleyways. I prefer to feed live at the club, since all the humans who enter participate in feedings willingly. But it's way, way too early in the morning for that. Roman's hand wraps around my wrist, and he pulls me down the road, nodding his head in that direction. I don't see what he sees, but I don't question him, not even for a second. I know it the second I see it, though. Back in this alleyway, tucked out of sight, I hear the sound of 3 voices. Without hesitation, Roman steps forward. It's a drug deal, no doubt about it. We step forward just as cash is exchanged. A slightly rough-looking man takes the money, his eyes wide as he sees us. 2 younger men, probably in their younger 20s, well-dressed for a day of business, take a few steps back when they see us. Leave. Roman growls at the drug dealer, his voice a feral growl. He must sense the danger approaching. He immediately turns and hightails it out of there. Neither Roman nor I wait half a second longer. I take the one on the left, Roman the one on the right. It's incredible how natural I feel with my fangs extended. At times, it's easy to forget that I am actually, truly a vampire. I deal with so much drama, it's easy to lose sight of the root cause for so much commotion. But as my fangs extend, as toxins pool in my mouth, as my teeth pierce the man's butter-soft flesh, I remember exquisitely. Hot, coppery liquid hits my tongue. It fills my mouth. Blood slips down my throat, the most satisfying feeling in the world. The fire embraces the blood. It accepts it with eager anticipation, lustful and eager. Pull. I always want to pull more. But what feels like just a fraction of a second later, a hand clasps around my wrist. I let out a disappointed groan, but I do let go. Roman pulls me 2 steps back, and I can't help but watch as the 2 men begin to regain their senses. Do we need to call the Chicago PD? Roman asks darkly. Damn, I kind of forgot how terrifying he is. Roman looks like the demon god of wrath. No, one man mutters, still coming back to his senses from a foggy state. You guys should seriously lay off the drugs, I say, wiping at the corner of my mouth and sucking a tiny bit of blood from my thumb. I thought you 2 were basically dead when we walked in here. Come on, one of the men says to the other. Don't call the cops. Better beat it then, Roman says coldly. I don't know whether to feel like a horrible person or to laugh as we watch them run. Do you ever still feel guilty when you feed live? I ask, without thinking about it. Every damn time, he admits, taking me completely by surprise. We turn, and without making any kind of plan or agreement, we both start walking toward the hospital. I always feel kind of guilty afterward, but during? Well, it seems you're exactly like every other vampire in the history of existence, Roman confesses. I don't know of any vampire who doesn't lose their mind, just a little, while feeding. Glad I'm not the only psychopath, I say with a chuckle as we turn the corner, the hospital coming into view. Any luck with curing the gifted or the vampires? Roman asks as we cross the street and walk down the block. We're still trying to determine if this can be cured, I say with a sigh. The amount of lab work we are running on everything is insane. Good thing Sebastian's prices for care here are so high. We're spending the yearly budget of a small country trying to get answers. We cross the last street, stepping onto the curb in front of the hospital. Just down the road, I hear sirens and then see flashing lights as an ambulance turns onto the street. My heart starts racing with adrenaline as the emergency room doctor and me kicks in. But I'm not scheduled to be in there today. Dev Roshan has been incredible, as is his daughter, our new nurse, Lily. Roman and I head toward the front doors, but when the ambulance pulls up to the drive-thru and a familiar voice catches my ears, I freeze. Car accident, a deep voice says. We were rear-ended by a delivery truck. Patrick. My eyes rip to the side, and all of my internal organs disappear when I see a bloodied flash of blonde hair, when I see blood smeared over a suit. And then I see the cut and bruised face of the Golden Prince of Chicago. Mason! His name erupts from my throat as I sprint in his direction. I'm there way too fast, considering it's only a few hours after morning rush hour. But my hand wraps around Mason's, instantly covered with his blood. Juliet, he says, his voice wispy and weak. His eyes flutter, and he can't seem to focus on anything around him. Get him inside, I bark as Diana rushes outside. Dr. Roshan! Mason is a bloodied and broken mess. He's covered in lacerations, exactly like he's been showered with broken glass. I can tell both of his legs are broken. From his wet, raspy breathing, I think he's got internal bleeding, maybe a collapsed or punctured lung. Mason, hold on, I say in panic, trying to make sure every bit of medical training I have doesn't fly out the window now that it's someone I love lying on the gurney. We're going to fix this. We're going to fix this. Dr. Roshan rushes into the room as we wheel Mason inside. He's immediately followed by Lily. I begin cutting Mason's jacket and shirt off, and it's so much worse than I thought. He's a palette of blue and black and red. He has so much internal bleeding. All of his ribs must be broken. I know what that means, but that doesn't stop me from doing everything. We're a flurry of activity, desperate to save his life. We stabilize his neck. We check his pupils for dilation. He gets a shot of morphine. But tears prick my eyes as we work. Broken. He's so damn broken. Mason's heart monitor spikes, beating faster and faster. And as I press an oxygen mask into his face, I watch as his eyes flutter. Mason? I breathe, my voice quivering. Mason, no, Mason! His monitor flatlines, a loud beeping sound ringing through the entire room. Starting chest compressions, Lily declares, never hesitating. She puts her hands on his sternum, elbows straight, and begins compressing, up and down, up and down. Mason, I call, dread filling my voice. Come on, Mason, you cannot leave me. It is not your time. Dr. Doe, Dave says. His tone is wary, filled with sympathy. He's too far gone. His body would take years to recover from this, even if he made it through the next 24 hours. He wasn't ready yet, I bark as tears prick my eyes. I'm still whirlwinding around the room, doing everything and anything I can think of. He wasn't ready. All I can think about is the weeks we spent together, the honest conversations we had about the pressure on his shoulders. His parents were murdered. The company fell onto his and Elena's shoulders when they were still so young. Billions of dollars run through Godfrey Enterprises every year, and they had the board to answer to. I endured vile, bitter words because everyone knew Mason needed to create an heir to the company. Elena pushed me at Mason before I resurrected, hoping we would be a happily ever after. But it all changed when I died my second death. As a vampire, I couldn't give Mason any heirs. "I'm just not ready," Mason had said to me. "There are so many dangerous ways to die here in Chicago. With vampires and gifted occupying one of the deadliest cities in the country, there are so many ways you could die. But it's a car accident that's going to take out the Golden Prince of Chicago." "It's been 2 minutes," Dave announces. He's still working, but the passion, the conviction is gone from his movements. "We keep trying," Lily says as she continues pumping at Mason's chest. Her eyes meet mine, and I find compassion there. She understands how hard this is. I don't know her yet. She doesn't really know me or Mason. But in this moment of terror and pain, she has compassion. "We keep trying," she repeats, holding my gaze. One single tear works its way free, slipping down my cheek. I nod, and we keep trying. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. That monitor remains flat. There are no signs of life. Dread fills me from every corner. I have to accept it. I know. I look at his bloodied face. I see the blood seeping through his clothes. He's bruised, broken. I could try to die for him. I did it for Roman once. Maybe I could do it again. But what good would that do? He would be in complete agony from his injuries. And maybe it's fate. Maybe this really is his time to move on to the next phase of his immortal life. Who am I to play God? Sometimes we have to accept that the universe is so much bigger than us. And when it comes down to it, we have so very little control. "Let's call it," I say, through a thick, tight throat at the 20-minute mark. My mouth is dry, and my tongue feels thick and dumb in my mouth. Time of death, 10:47 a.m. Lily stops chest compressions. She stares down at Mason for a moment, and there's something so human, so real about the look on her face. He's a person, not just a body. It's easy to forget that sometimes, that what's lying on the bed isn't just skin sacks of organs and bones that need fixing. Lily looks at him, and even though she doesn't know Mason, there's sadness in her eyes. I don't know her yet, but I want to now. "I'm so sorry," Dr. Roshan offers. "I know he was important to you. I hope there is comfort in knowing this isn't truly the end." I nod. I know Mason isn't dead for good. I know he's not gone forever, but this isn't what he wanted. We can make plans. We like to pretend we're in control. But life has a way of happening, no matter what we plan for. "Thank you," I offer, my voice small and quiet. Lily carries over a sheet and pulls it up over Mason's broken body, as if she's tucking him in from the cold. She places a hand on his cheek, once more studying him, taking him in as a person. "I never met Mason Godfrey," she says, "but the entire city knew he was a good person. Isn't it a miracle that people like him get a second life?" "Yeah," I answer. Her words fill me up and lift my heart in such a heavy moment, and I think that maybe Lily is one of those kinds of people she's talking about. "We need to take him someplace safe while he resurrects." I startle, having completely forgotten Roman was in the room. I look back at him to find his expression white and grim. "Patrick will stand guard if we need," Roman continues. "But keeping him here in the hospital isn't a good idea when he wakes up." I nod. Slowly, my reason is beginning to return. He can't go back to Godfrey Tower either. There are way too many humans who come and go. Roman nods in agreement. "He'll be safe at the Nocturne. We'll make sure no one is around." I sniff once. Human instincts of grief still there, even though I haven't been human in so long now. I nod. I need to talk to Holly, but then I'll go with you. Get him situated. I'll go get my SUV, Roman says softly. He places his hand on my shoulder as he walks by, a sympathetic and tender gesture. Do you think... I trail off after Roman has left. Do you think you two can clean him up? Change him into something else? I don't... We can take care of him, Dave says with a nod. Thank you, I say, taking in a deep breath. I feel slightly dizzy as I step out of the room into the sterile white hall. I numbly make my way down the hall until I push open the doors into the main corridor of the hospital. I need to tell Elena. She needs to know her twin brother, the person she loves most in the world, is dead. That the time has come when he'll resurrect as an immortal. It's so bizarre. They're twins, born at the same time. They're supposed to be the same exact age. But Elena took matters into her own hands a few years ago, ending her mortal life and process of aging. Mason looks, and biologically is, several years older than her now. I feel like a failure. Elena needs to know what's happened, but she's in a coma right now, lying in a room full of others in the same state upstairs. And I feel only marginally closer to knowing what happened to her. Dr. Doe? Holly's normally perky voice comes out cautious and wary. I look to the side to see her walking up, her brows raised, caution in her expression. What happened? Her genuine concern, the fact that I can tell she gives a damn, it breaks me just a little. Tears push out, and I squeeze my eyes closed. Holly, a woman I pay to be my assistant, doesn't hesitate. She rushes forward, wrapping her arms around me. This woman, who has only known me for 10 days, wraps me in her arms and holds on to me as I completely fall apart. And I know for certain right then, I will never leave Chicago. Because Chicago is where my people are, my family. I learned what love is in this city. I've torn down the steel walls I've built around myself in this city and found others who were willing to be my support instead. Roman once asked if I was willing to die for the people of this city to save them. And I did. And I know now that I'd do it over and over again. Home is where the heart is, and Chicago has claimed it in every way that matters. Chapter 11. Roman backs right up to the doors of the emergency room. There will be no death certificate. We certainly don't need word of Mason's death getting out into the world. It would cause massive waves. No, Mason will resurrect in 4 days, and the world will have no idea anything has changed. We slide his dead body into the back of the SUV, all the seats folded down. And then the medical staff who tried so hard to save his mortal life watch as Roman and I drive away. I pull out my phone and dial Sigrid. Mason was in a car accident. I begin speaking after she answers. I rub 2 fingers over my lower lip, hating that these words are coming out over them. It was bad. Is he at the hospital? She asks, her tone panicked. I squeeze my eyes closed, leaning my forehead against the cool glass. He didn't make it, Sigrid. A word I don't recognize comes through as a huffed breath, a curse in Norwegian, I'm sure. Roman and I are taking him to the nocturne so we can make sure there's no one around when he wakes up. I continue explaining. That seems like a wise decision, she says. Elena, well, I can only imagine her reaction when she finally wakes up and learns this news. Yeah, I say, my throat feeling tighter. I'm still no closer to waking Elena up or knowing if I even can. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know. Thank you for telling me, she says. And Juliet, I am sorry. I know how much you love him. Yeah, I repeat. She ends the call, and I just keep looking out the window. Love is a complicated thing. Sigrid is fully aware of my relationship with Mason, Not that it was actually a relationship, but she understands. Even though Mason and I never could be, she knows that I'll love him forever, because he's the best person I've ever known. He's too good for you. Sebastian said it once, and it was true. Mason deserves someone as good and golden-hearted as he is. Roman parks at the curb to the nocturne and climbs out. I look up and down the street. It's the middle of the day. There are more than a few people coming and going, but Roman handles shady shit like this all the time. He brought a big blanket with him. He throws it over Mason and then hoists him up and over his shoulder like he weighs nothing at all. The sight is still a little sketchy looking, but in about 3 seconds, Roman is up all those steps in long strides, and he unlocks the front door. I close the back hatch of the SUV and follow Roman into the building. It's dead silent inside. As far as I know, this building is only ever used for council meetings and fancy parties. Most of the time, this exceptionally valuable piece of real estate sits empty. Roman turns up the stairs, Mason dangling over his shoulder. "Why do we even need this huge building?" I ask as I follow Roman down the hall. "It is seriously a massive waste." "It was given to the council by Mason's dad," Roman explains as he stops at the door, pushing it open. I'm a little surprised when we walk into a room set up as a bedroom. Nothing fancy, just a twin-sized bed and a desk pushed up against another wall. This was his original headquarters for Godfrey Enterprises. When he finished building that skyscraper, he had no use for this building. So, when we formed the council, he deeded it to us. Roman lays Mason on the bed, and I swallow hard as I look down at him. He looks so broken. He is so broken. Honestly, we've all had so much on our plates since we formed the council, no one ever took the time to think if there was a better use of the space. Roman's eyes sweep the room, as if he has X-ray vision, and can see the entirety of the building from where he stands. What would you do with it? You've got say now, councilwoman. That sounds so weird, Roman, I say, shaking my head. I haven't even seen the majority of this place. Mason's not going anywhere, he says, arching a brow. If you wanted to take a tour of the place, now is a pretty safe time to do so. I should be getting back to the hospital. I have so much to do. But curiosity has always won out for this cat. I give Roman a smirk as I step past him out into the hallway. I start pushing doors open along the way. Office, storage, what looks like a meeting room, a utility room. It should sound really boring, all of it, but this building is old, really old, and the charm is over the top. The polished wood floors, the wood details, the crown moldings. Even the doorknobs are a fancy pattern, brass and material. I mean, my first thought is hotel, but that doesn't make much sense, I say as I walk down the hall to the stairs. Silently, Roman follows behind me. Security is an issue in this city, so I don't think we want to advertise a place for outsiders to come and visit. Definitely not, Roman says in a growly voice. I glance back with a smirk and see the dark, slightly annoyed look in his eyes. I step out onto the next floor. And this part is pretty dazzling. There's a long hallway that stretches out in front of us, and there are arched windows the entire way. If I weren't wearing my sunglasses, I'd be completely blind from all the light pouring into the building. You know, for a building used by vampires, you'd think there would be a few more blinds or curtains in this place, I remark sarcastically. Well, when the place isn't used 99% of the time, he trails off. The rooms on this level are significantly larger, almost as if they could house small businesses, ones that don't need entire floors to themselves. We could sublet the rooms to businesses, I think out loud. It would generate some income. By the way, someone once mentioned a vampire tax. I look over at Roman, arching an eyebrow. Is that a real thing? Roman nods. It is. $100 per month per vampire or gifted. It's how we pay for security. So far, people would rather pay for that than live somewhere else they have to worry about royals or hunters. Hunters? Shit, I say, blinking hard. Is that really a thing? Once more, Roman nods. Not too many of them. Most humans aren't that stupid. But they're out there, each with a personal vendetta. Our kind does some pretty despicable shit every now and then. No kidding, I say, knowing firsthand the truth of it. So, how come I haven't been asked to pay this tax since I came into the city? Sounds to me like I owe you $1,000. When he doesn't answer immediately, I glance back at Roman. And the look on his face tells me he doesn't want to say whatever he's thinking. Mason and then Sebastian paid it for me, didn't they? I ask, knowing the answer immediately. And council members don't pay into the tax, he says, barely resisting an eye roll. Which is pretty stupid, considering the Godfreys are richer than 99.9% of the human population. Sebastian was loaded with hospital and blood money, and hey, I'm not going to complain about my doctor's salary. And a thought hits me hard. Pretty sure I'm the worst niece ever. I have no idea how Sigrid makes a living. There's a rumor she writes smutty romance books. Roman fills in with a smirk. I'm inclined to believe it, because she never denies it. But if she does, she uses a pen name. I've never been able to find the name Sigrid Haugen anywhere on the internet. No way, I say, utterly flabbergasted. My eyes go wide and huge, and I can't quite pick up my jaw. It's what some of the gifted have joked about, he says with a shrug. She has to be making money somehow. She never seems financially strained. I can't believe it, I say, shaking my head with a laugh. Guess I know who I'm visiting when I get 2 seconds of downtime. You didn't hear it from me, Roman says, putting his hands up in surrender. It's nice. This moment is so normal. Laughing and razzing each other, wandering the halls of an empty building. It's not sneaking around. It's not reminiscing on a shared dark past. It's so present and natural. Finally, we reach the second to top floor, and I can't help but grin as I take in the space. It's largely open, a loft style. Arched windows surround the entire space. Polished hardwood floors create a massive space. It kind of reminds me of my apartment in some ways. It's old, it's imperfect, but there's something comforting about it, inviting. This would be the most amazing loft, I state, imagining it already. A kitchen there, a huge dining area over there. You could throw up a wall, and that would be a bedroom with an amazing view. I can't believe someone hasn't converted it yet. We've all had our own spaces already, Roman says with a shrug. A thought sparks in my brain. What? What would you think about John moving in here? He's still looking for a place of his own, and this, with a little work, this could be really incredible. Roman nods, looking at the space. John is trustworthy, and it's obvious he's sticking around so long as you're in the city. I don't think I see any harm in it. You'd have to run it by the rest of the council. I will, I say, smiling as I imagine it. The place would be an absolute mansion if it were converted into a home. It would still be for public use by the vampire and gifted population, but as a home. Where do you consider home? I ask, as I look back at him with furrowed brows. The club or the church? Roman lives at both regularly, it feels like. He has a dedicated bedroom at the church, but he does have an entire personal apartment at the club. Home isn't a word that has ever felt applicable to me, he answers, though he looks away from me. His eyes scan the large open space as if he's trying to capture my vision for it. Pretty sure that's supposed to be a place with people you care about. Love, good times. I just have places where I can close my eyes and watch my back a little less. It's painful how much I understand. I think I know what you mean. But I think home is also where we find peace. When I got my first private apartment in New York, it was a complete hole, but it was mine. I worked so damn hard for it. So when I came to Chicago and I lost all of that, it was rough. I hated being dependent on Mason. I think the entire city thought I was a gold digger, but I hated every second of that part of it. In the end, the only person you can depend on is yourself, right? But there is this little sliver of doubt in Roman's voice. Right, I answer, though it doesn't come out very confident. I let out a sigh as my eyes scan the room, though I'm not really seeing it. At least, that's what I've always thought. Coming to Chicago has kind of shaken that belief. You have a lot of people here who love you, Juliet, Roman says quietly. There's something soft and vulnerable when I softly respond, yeah. I hope you recognize it, just how important you are, he continues, and the sincerity in his voice pulls my eyes to his ice blue ones. This city needs you. It's lucky to have you. Something about the intensity behind his words sends my heart beating marginally faster. You stopped a madman and died for the people here to make it happen. Something in his eyes tells me he's a little uncomfortable with what he's saying, but they also reveal how much he means it. You picked up the pieces when Sebastian dropped everything. You're saving lives, Juliet. You're doing good. And I know you're overwhelmed trying to fix the gifted and the vampires, but I don't have any doubt you're going to do it. You're kind of freaking me out, I say honestly. I know we're on good terms now, but damn. My heart is hammering in my chest. He trails off, unsure what to say next. His eyes drop to the floor between us. You just need to know. You're invaluable. My soul has constantly been evolving and shifting since I resurrected as a vampire. Recently, I thought I'd finally figured out who I am. But I feel something new in me, treading unknown ground. I feel different right now than I felt even 20 minutes ago. I swallow hard and pretend it has nothing to do with the words Roman has just spoken. Thank you, Roman, I say quietly. Chapter 12. I'm sitting at my computer, staring at the screen, trying to make sense of the data on it. We've analyzed the shit out of the coma patient's blood, every one of them, which has helped us identify some unusual markers in their systems. It actually looks very similar to Legionnaire's disease. The fever, the cough, the mental confusion. But the seizures, I can't piece that together. I rest my elbows on the desk and press the heels of my hands into my eyes. I wish I knew of more vampires who were doctors or scientists. We need more knowledge on this. I feel like I'm good at what I do, but I've been board certified for 4 months, for crying out loud. I'm not a hematologist. I'm not a lab analyst. There's a knock on my door and my head snaps up. And there I find one of my favorite people in the world. But the look in Warren's eyes makes my stomach drop to my knees. You need to come with me, he says. His voice shakes. He's always nervous and a little shifty. But there's something new in it that I've never heard before. No. I'm on my feet before I ask him anything else. I grab my coat from the hook by the door. What's wrong? Side by side, we walk swiftly down the hall toward the main doors. Chicago PD served Roman a search warrant at the club 20 minutes ago, he says, speaking fast, his words panicked. They're looking for evidence that Roman had something to do with Sebastian's disappearance. Shit, I breathe, annoyance and frustration flaring in my chest. I double my pace, all but leaving Warren in the dust. The club is 4 blocks from the hospital, and in my urgency, my panic, I cover the distance in less than 5 minutes. The second I make the last turn to bring Roman Knights into view, my heart leaps into my throat. There are 3 police cars parked at the curb in front of the club. The main door is wide open, and there is a line forming. Dozens of hopeful club attendees watch curiously, straining their necks to find out what's going on. I jog down the sidewalk, thinking every swear word I've ever learned in my lifetime. Just as I get 20 feet from the door, Roman suddenly appears. His eyes lock onto mine instantly, and there's something dark in them, something resigned. And I understand just 1 second later. A police officer walks directly behind Roman. Roman's hands are behind his back. He's handcuffed. "Roman!" I call out, panic and confusion rushing through me like adrenaline. "What's going on?" "Find the cure, Juliet," he says as he's marched toward one of those police cars. "They're all counting on you." Seems like we were looking in the wrong direction for a while. My blood chills at the familiar voice. I turn to see Superintendent Day walking out of the club, followed by 2 detectives. I did not expect it to be so easy finding evidence. I think I have a feeling whose DNA that is going to be. The detectives come out with evidence bags. Each of them has a cotton swab with bloody tips. Shit. I spin, my eyes locking on Roman's. He stares back at me, and I can't quite read the emotions in his eyes. I think he's trying to communicate something, but he doesn't seem surprised. He doesn't seem panicked. He looks resigned. "Roman," I breathe out. But the officer just puts his hand on the back of Roman's head, guiding him down into the back seat of the cruiser. I hold his gaze as the door is slammed shut between him. "Roman DeLuca is under arrest in the disappearance of Dr. Sebastian Vincent," Day says, and the smug satisfaction in her voice makes me want to rip every one of her fingers and toes from her body, one by one, slowly. I want to argue. I want to tell her she's being so stupid. But I know exactly how this looks. And as I watch them all load into their vehicles and drive away, I realize Roman knew exactly what was going to happen. "Why did he do that?" I say out loud as everyone drives away. "What?" Warren asks. I forgot he was at my side, watching as his boss was walked out in handcuffs. I blink 3 times rapidly and shake my head. The police were convinced I did something to Sebastian. But the other day, Roman showed them the video of Sebastian trashing my apartment, and he made it a very clear point to make sure Superintendent Day knew I went to stay with Roman after Sebastian and I parted. My heart is racing. Something at the back of my eyes stings. And there is a crowd of people snapping pictures, talking loudly, gossiping about the vampire nightclub owner who just got hauled out of his own establishment in handcuffs. "I think you know exactly why he did what he did, Juliet," Warren says softly. My eyes swing over to his. "I hope you recognize it, just how important you are. This city needs you," Roman had said. Roman turned the spotlight away from me and put it right on himself. If it weren't for him, it would likely be me in the back of that police car, the handcuffs around my wrists. "Find the cure, Juliet." Pound, pound, pound. My heart is thundering in my ears. Roman put himself in the line of suspicion so I could keep working to cure the vampires and the gifted. "Why would you do that, Roman?" I breathe out. Why would he ever do that for me?" "You know why he did it," Warren says again. No, I don't know why he did it. But as I imagine Roman on his way to jail, it all hits me at once. Elena is in a coma. Mason is in the process of resurrection. Sigrid has lost her gift. Now Roman is under arrest. It's me now. It's just me. And even I can only take so much. I stagger around, my eyes sweeping the city. It suddenly feels too big. It feels like too many eyes are looking to me. And I suddenly feel so small. I feel so young. I feel so incredibly inadequate. "Juliet?" Warren asks warily. I take a step forward, followed by another. I can't be here right now. I can't keep standing here while that crowd of clubbers snaps pictures of me and speculate who I am. I stagger forward, unsure of where I'm headed. Juliet? Warren calls again. His stride matches mine. I feel his eyes on me, but he doesn't say anything as I let my feet guide me. I stand at an intersection, and my breath comes in and out faster and harder. Left to home, right to the hospital. Emotions prick my eyes. My throat feels tight. My hands are shaking. I'm alone. I'm all alone. There is no backup. There isn't anyone else to rely on now. Me. Just me. The weight of 2 races on my shoulders. My feet move to the right. My mind is a messy wheel of thought. Elena is gone. Mason is gone. Sigrid is incapacitated. Roman is going to spend the night in jail. Just you, Juliet. Just you and a hospital full of injured, dying people. Just you in a room full of vampires in a coma, just waiting for you to figure this the hell out. Just you, Juliet. The first tear slips down my cheek as I step back through the hospital doors. A dozen more quickly follow the first as I walk down the hall. And by the time I reach my office and look down at my desk, they begin free-falling. I know Warren is still behind me, but I don't care. Everything has gone to shit too much to care about dignity and privacy. I pull my phone from my pocket. I bring up my favorites list. There are only a few names on the list, but I haven't been able to bring myself to change it in the last few months. So, still sitting there at the top is Sebastian's name. I tap it and hold the phone to my ear. You've reached Dr. Sebastian Vincent. I can't get to the phone right now, but if you leave a message, I'll do my best to get back to you. I squeeze my eyes closed, sending a fresh cascade of tears down my face. I knew my call would go straight to voicemail. There wasn't a question mark in me about it. But hearing his voice again, it messes with my heart. It messes with my mind. It messes with my anger and my hatred, but also my grief and my pain. Sebastian, I say after the beep. His name right there is an entire conversation. It's regret. It's vengeance. It's disbelief. It's pleading. I can't do this. I'm trying. I'm trying to fix it all, but I don't think I can fix this on my own. My eyes are squeezed tightly shut. I feel the breath in my chest pick up speed. Everything starts to feel painful. My lungs, my heart, my legs, shoulders, my scalp, everything hurts. Sigrid can't use her gift. More gifted have moved out of the city. My voice breaks on my words. They grow thicker as I start to lose control. Elena is in a coma and Mason is dead. I shake my head as that grief hits me all over again. And now, Roman has been arrested for your disappearance. My fingers rise up to comb through my hair. A sob explodes from my lips, and I don't contain it one bit. I can't do this all on my own, Sebastian. You need to call the police and tell them you're okay. You need to let them know you're not dead. You need... It hurts to speak. It hurts to voice all the things that are wrong. This is messing with so many lives, and I can't do it. I can't handle all of this on my own, Sebastian. Damn it. Don't you see what you've caused? Another sob takes my voice for a few seconds. I'm a mess. Snot, waterfalling tears, my voice shaking and breaking. Please, Sebastian, I whisper. Please call me back. Please tell me how to fix this. Tell me how to wake the vampires up. Tell me how to restore the gifted. I suck in a quivering breath. I'm trying. I am. But I can't do this, Sebastian. Not on my own. Another sob erupts from me, and feeling too overcome, I end the message, dropping my phone on my desk. Instantly, warm arms wrap around me, and my head is guided to a slightly bony shoulder. Warren has always been a warm, easy person to be around, but this is our first earth-shaking moment shared. But I'm not embarrassed as he holds me together. I don't feel like he's going to use this against me later, seeing me at my weakest. He just holds me tight and allows me to let it all out as the weight of the world crushes me to dust. Chapter 13. How much longer now? Sigrid asks. She sits in the chair across from the bed. Honestly, I've never seen the resurrection happen yet, I answer her. But Mason said it's not an exact science, just about 4 days. The 4-day mark will be at about 11. Sigrid glances at the time on her phone. We have 3 hours. She needs to not be anywhere in this building when Mason resurrects. She's not one who would come back from the dead. Well, I guess that's not true. I could die for her, so long as I were right there with her when she died. And I absolutely would die for her. And now she knows the ability is there. In the last 2 hours we've spent together, I've told her everything. Every detail of every crazy thing that's happened in the last few weeks. She knows it all, and I trust her absolutely. Elena is going to have plenty of big emotions about her brother's resurrection, Sigrid says in that serious tone of hers. Oh, I know she's going to let me have it about not protecting him while she was out, I say, and I swear I can hear the exact conversation. It is not your job to save everyone, Juliet, Sigrid says, her tone firm. Even if you can bring others back from the dead. I know, I say, as I sit on the edge of the bed beside Mason. It's miraculous to witness this. He was so bruised, so broken. It's hard to believe that this lifeless, still man is going to wake up from the dead in just a few hours. But the bruises on his body have slowly been disappearing, the cuts healing themselves. Mason looks stronger and healthier than ever. But I know the burning, searing agony he's going through. The resurrection is a bitch. Every now and then, the gods bless us with good timing, Sigrid notes. Just a few days ago, there would not have been safe blood for him to drink upon waking. What would have been done then? I shake my head. I can't believe how compounded all of this has gotten. The vampires of Chicago nearly starved to death. I shake my head once more. It doesn't do any good for all of this to continue burying me. I'm overwhelmed. I need to shove it all out and deal with one thing at a time. He is lucky to have you as his guide once he wakes, she says, looking over at the mini fridge sitting on the floor, plugged into the wall. Inside, there are dozens of bags of donor blood. Just returning the favor, I say with a smile, remembering his own guidance when I resurrected as a vampire. He was still human, but he knew everything there was to know, considering his twin had already completed the process, and he was raised by a vampire father who was well over 100 years old. I wanted to ask you, I say, changing the subject, realizing I have a moment alone with another council member. What do you think about doing some renovations and turning the Nocturne more into a home? I don't know who exactly would all want to live there right now, but it sitting empty feels like a waste. I was wondering about offering the project to John. She takes several moments to consider my proposal. It's a complicated one, because it was given to the entire council by Mason's father. But honestly, what else is it being used for? I like the idea very much, actually, she finally answers with a hesitant smile. There will always be difficult circumstances for both vampire and gifted in this city. It sounds like a lovely idea. I nod with a smile. I still need to talk to Mason and Elena, but Roman was good with the idea. Thank you. Sigrid squeezes my hand. Well, I better depart. Best not to push our luck. Sigrid stands from her chair and walks toward the door. Hey, question, I say, my head suddenly perking up. I heard this rumor about you. A knowing look crosses her face, shifting into a smirk. Dear Juliet, I don't think I have to tell you that rumors often grow as they go. I just smile and shake my head at her answer that isn't an answer. Good luck, she says as she steps outside. Call if there is anything I can help you with. I will. She walks down the hall, the sound of her heels clicking on the hardwood floor as she passes a pacing Patrick. I pull out my laptop and get to work. My life is 100 times easier since Holly came into it. She has everything moving like clockwork. And with Dr. Roshan and Lily, I feel like at least the hospital is back under control. If it weren't for all of that, I might be in full panic, meltdown mode. Work is vitally important to me, but right here, with one of my best friends, is where I need to be. An hour later, I hear footsteps walk up the outside steps before coming inside. Downstairs, I hear Patrick greet someone and know the voice just seconds later. Just a few moments later, the face of Jay Casper appears in the open doorway. He looks like the world's most deviously handsome ghost with that white hair and pale as snow skin. "The prince is still sleeping," he asks as he enters. He's wearing a white button-down shirt, the sleeves rolled up to his forearms. It only enhances his eerie looks. Every time I've ever seen him, he's wearing light-colored clothes. It's as if he's trying to look supernatural. "For now," I say, tearing my eyes away from my work. Roman's second-in-command looks down at Mason. It's hard to tell what he thinks of him. Honestly, I don't know that Jay and Mason even know each other. I've never seen their paths cross. "I'm afraid I come bearing bad news," he says, turning from Mason to face me. He really is unsettling to look at. His features are wildly sharp. His skin is the palest I've ever seen, and his pure white hair is supernatural. Those green eyes are piercing. "Do I really want to get bad news today?" I ask, defaulting to sarcasm. It's been a pretty shitty couple of days. Do you really want to be responsible for making it worse? "She is beautiful and deadly," Jay flirts, crooking a smirk. "But considering he did it for you, I thought you might want to know." "Oh no," I automatically say, feeling instantly deflated. Jay nods. "The blood they found in Roman's apartment came back, matching Sebastian's. They also found Roman's blood, so they know there was a serious altercation." I feel my entire face go cold. Only Roman, Sebastian, and I know what truly happened in Roman's apartment that night. That Sebastian staked Roman. That he died. That for a few harrowing seconds, I thought Roman was gone forever. And then we discovered my gift when I touched him, died, and brought Roman back to life. Roman had staked Sebastian as well, though he'd missed killing him by inches. "Roman has officially been charged." Jay continues to deliver the doomsday news. "He's working with Silvano. There will be a court hearing in 4 days." "But he just has to sit in jail until then?" I ask. Desperation starts climbing up my throat. And the reckless side of me, the wicked side of me, starts plotting. I could break Roman out of there. I'm a vampire. I have incredible strength and speed. Surely I could break him out. I'm thinking of who I'd have to bribe, con, blackmail to get Roman out of a jail cell, locked up for a crime he didn't commit, because Sebastian is a damn coward. "Afraid so," he says. "He is surprisingly calm about all of this. I've never seen him so resolved. It's unnerving, considering this is Roman, the Dark Lord of Chicago's streets." There's a pit in my chest, and it's filling up with confusion and anxiety. Why? Why is he doing this? He didn't have to do what he did, I say, my tone low and quiet. I would have handled it on my own. "Trust me, darling," Jay says, looking up at me from beneath his light lashes. "If Roman hadn't taken the fall for you, it would be you sitting behind bars. Superintendent Day is out for blood." "Damn it, Sebastian," I curse as I toss my computer onto the bed. I shake my head as my eyes go to the window, though it's covered by the blanket I pinned over it to keep out as much light as possible. We need to find him. We need to make him clean this mess up. "Agreed," Jay says with a nod.
And then we peel his flesh from his bones and feed it to him while he apologizes for every breath he's taken in the past 6 months.
Too far, Jay, I say with a scowl in his direction. Geesh, I thought Roman was bad. No, Roman is still way, way scarier. Jay is almost like a cartoon villain.
Not far enough,
He says with a smirk.
Anyway,
He continues as he stands straighter.
just thought I'd let you know. And I thought it might be wise to stick around, make sure the Golden Prince doesn't go too wild when he wakes up.
Thanks, I say, genuinely appreciating the extra help. I don't know what to expect, but I remember my own absolute senselessness in getting blood when I first woke up. I really wasn't looking forward to restraining Mason, if it comes to that. Between me, Patrick, and Jay, I'm confident we can keep him from killing anyone right off the bat. Should be any time now. Jay nods and steps back out into the hallway, speaking to Patrick in low voices about nothing that draws my attention. I lean back in my seat, my eyes sliding closed. I tell myself not to, but I can't help but picture Roman sitting in a jail cell. Actually, it's kind of amusing. Roman is terrifying looking. His broody expressions, those blue eyes, and that black hair make him look a little like his name should be Hades. I bet all the other guys in there are staying far, far away from his corner of the room. It's the change of sound that draws my eyes back to Mason. I've been listening to the thundering of his heart for the past few hours. Fascinating how his heart could stop completely, stay still and silent for days, and then suddenly it started beating again 4 hours ago. It's been beating at over 150 beats per minute since it started back up. But suddenly, it slows. 100 beats, then 80. And in a matter of 1 minute, it's down to 60 beats per minute. I think it's happening, I call out, though I don't really have to raise my voice. Patrick and Jay would have heard me if I'd nearly whispered. I cross to the mini fridge and pull out 3 bags of blood, knowing it won't be enough, but it's a start. Patrick and Jay enter the room and stand right over Mason, one on either side of the bed. I settle at the foot of the bed, blood bags in hand. I knew it was coming. I knew. But I still watched him die, still heard it as his heart stopped. When a gasp rips from Mason's lips and he surges upright, it makes me jump, and the tiniest startled scream escapes my lips. My adrenaline surges as his eyes go straight to me, glowing brilliantly red for the first time in his now immortal life. Something feral and guttural comes up his throat, and his eyes shift down to the bags in my hands. "Welcome back," I say, and toss the bags to him. "Drink up." It's savage and wild as he tears into the bags, spilling half of it onto the blue sheets. He guzzles it down, his breath coming in and out in ragged grunts. When the first is gone, he grabs the second one. But his new strength is more than he anticipated, and he pops it, spilling all over the bed and himself. Not hesitating even half a second more, he grabs the third and sinks his newfound fangs into it. I turn, collecting 4 more bags. "More," Mason bellows. I turn to see him scrambling to leave the bed, his eyes fixed on the door.
"Not so fast, little prince,"
Jay says, as he and Patrick each catch one of his arms.
"I can only imagine the guilt trip you'd never get off of if you went out there and did what your instincts are telling you to do right now."
"I can smell them," he growls, again trying to surge forward and, thankfully, failing. How can you just stand there when you can smell them like this?" "Imagine how it was kissing you, now that you know you smelled like that," I tease, walking to the end of the bed again and tossing another bag to him. He immediately rips into it, dribbling blood all over his chin as he downs the cold liquid. Jay arches a white eyebrow at me, and I just shrug at the look on his face. "Seriously, how the hell did you not kill me 100 times? Mason says, and his throat sounds raw as he speaks. I toss him another bag, and he dives right in. Trust me, it wasn't easy, I say, recalling how difficult it was. I've tasted Mason's blood dozens of times. I'm not proud of it. What went on between Mason and I was extremely physical. No, we never had sex because I didn't trust myself that much. But he'd freely offered, and I had poor enough self-control. I went for it. If I could go back and do it over, I would. How does this taste so good and so disgusting at the same time? Mason growls, tossing the bag to the floor with a disapproving look in its direction. Trust me, fresh tastes much better, Patrick says. Not helpful, I say with a scowl, as Mason roars and tries again to get off the bed, aimed for the door. Never said I was a resurrection specialist, he says with a simple shrug. He pins Mason back against the bed, Jay effortlessly doing the same on the other side. Mason takes a deep, ragged breath. Knowing exactly how that breath feels, I toss him another bag of blood. He looks down at it with a suppressed look of disgust, but he still bites into it 4 seconds later. Gotta say, this all feels kind of anticlimactic, I say. When I resurrected, you and Elena had a hell of a lot of stuff to explain. So, to not have to tell you any dramatic, life-changing news, it feels like you're getting off in this too easy. And it's really nice to see it when Mason chuckles and smiles. He shakes his head, looking down at the mess he's made, though I don't think he's really seeing it. How about we go with what the hell happened? I remember heading to the bank with Patrick, but then there's nothing. There's a little noise in the back of Patrick's throat, something between regret and dread. It was a semi-truck, he says. His words come out almost timid. We were stopped at a light. There was a semi-truck behind us. It was a mechanical failure, supposedly. It rear-ended us going 40. Shit, I didn't know that part. Going 40 in the middle of downtown is like going 150 on the freeway. You were in the back seat, Patrick continues, not meeting Mason's eyes. But the back of the limo, gone, totaled. I never even saw the scene, but if that big of a truck was going that fast, it's a wonder Mason even made it to the hospital before dying. He should have been killed instantly. You died in the emergency room. I fill in the rest. We tried fixing what we could. We did CPR for 20 minutes, but I shake my head. Maybe I should have tried harder, longer. Surely there was something else I could have done. It's okay, Juliet. Mason's voice comes through, filled with compassion. My eyes rise to meet his. There isn't a particle of me that doubts you did everything you could have. I mean, it's okay. I still had a second shot coming. I'm sorry, I still say, in a rough, quiet voice. Sorry for dying on your table, he says, trying to lighten the mood. Sorry for putting that weight on your shoulders. Shit, you two are saps, Jay chimes in, rolling his eyes hard. Shut up, I say, annoyed, as I throw a blood bag at him hard. But Mason's new vampiric instincts kick in, and he catches it in the air before it can hit its intended target. Chapter 14. The man blinks his eyes open. Finally, I was starting to get worried. This patient took a bad tumble down a set of stairs. Broken arm, but I wasn't worried about a concussion. Except he's been taking forever to regain consciousness. Make sure he gets some morphine, I say to Lily as I take off my gloves. Sir, the stitches in your forehead need to stay in for 3 weeks. I've already reset your arm. It will be casted for 8 weeks. He still looks a little dazed, but he blinks hard and nods. I would feel worse for running out if his wife weren't here. I've already explained all of this to her. I've got this, Lily reassures me as I step toward the door. Thanks, I say, dreaming about a scalding hot shower. Hey, I'm not exactly sure when because life is a little chaotic, but do you want to go get dinner sometime? I could use a little girl time. She blinks in surprise, But just a moment later, her expression brightens with excitement. Damn, it's really not fair to the rest of the female population how stunning she is. And she's so stupid nice. I'd love that. I smile and nod and duck out into the hall. I've missed this natural pace, where I can work shifts in the emergency room when I want and only have to spend a few hours each day working on the boring administrative stuff. Holly has made my life bearable again. Echo has full control over the blood trade. She pays the hospital a royalty for us supplying the blood, but the vampires now have a regular supply of blood that doesn't have to come from unwilling victims. I stop in the middle of the hall when my cell phone rings. I pull it from my pocket, and nervous energy floods my system when I see Mason's name. Patrick, Jay, and I sat with Mason for a full 24 hours at the Nocturne. He'd gone through nearly 24 bags of blood before he seemed satisfied. He'd gone through another 6 bags over the next few hours. But he was under control. We'd all walked outside with Mason after it had been a full day, and we'd stood right at his side as he took a deep breath as the first human walked by him. He'd had to stand there with his eyes closed, his hands curled into balled fists for 30 seconds. But finally, he'd nodded and said he was okay. It was 8 blocks to Godfrey Tower, but all 3 of us walked with him so we could monitor him while he was exposed to so many veins walking past him. He'd breathed hard for the first 2 blocks, but gradually his hands had loosened. He didn't even look at anyone in the last block. We walked in the doors, and Poe handed over the insulated bag I'd called Echo to order. As soon as we stepped into the elevator, Mason downed 2 of the bags, but he was under control before we even opened up onto the top floor. I trusted Mason. His control was pretty damn impressive, yet I wasn't even surprised. I left him with Patrick and told him I'd be back to check on him after work, which was supposed to be in 3 hours. Hey, I answer. I need you to come here, to the tower, right now, he says. His tone is panicked. I curse under my breath and turn back down the hall. What happened? But there's a yell, and then I think I hear the phone hit the floor. Then the call is killed. Shit, I curse again, tucking my phone back into my pocket. Without explanations to Dr. Roshan as I rush by him, I burst through the doors and barrel down the hall, out the front doors. Damn. Sometimes I wonder why Chicago was chosen as the town to create a safe haven for vampires and gifted. There are so many witnesses around all the time. I'm rushing down the street as fast as I dare, but I have to pace myself so hard. Why couldn't we have set up in some little off-the-track town in the Pacific Northwest? Plus, less sunshine to deal with. I dart around a corner, pausing impatiently while I wait for the light to change. And finally, I'm rushing up the drive to the huge glass doors. I need access to Mason's penthouse, now, I bark at Poe. I should be out of breath considering the mad dash I just took. But I'm not even the slightest bit sweaty as I practically bounce on the balls of my feet. You got it, he says as he taps a few commands on his computer. Everything okay? Wish I knew, I say as he hands me a badge, and I make a beeline for the elevator. I swipe the card and seriously debate for 2 seconds if I should just take the stairs. Thankfully, the doors open right then, and I step into the empty elevator. It's a long ride up all 62 floors, and my brain is thinking through all the worst scenarios. What am I going to walk in to find? A pile of bodies Mason has drained? Finally, the elevator dings and opens on the private penthouse level. I push my way out of it before the doors are fully open. I don't even hesitate as I reach Mason's front door. I let myself right in, once more entering the lavish space I once lived in for a few months. Mason? I call out as I walk through his long entryway. The sound of a snarl greets me, making me pause in place for just a second. Not her, ever, Mason says sternly, though in a tone I've never heard from him before. You'll watch yourself. Who? I begin to ask, but The second I make the turn into the main living area, I stop dead in my tracks. A man stands beside Mason. There's blood smeared all over his neck, staining his white, button-up shirt. He breathes hard, his shoulders rising and falling rapidly. His breathing sounds strange, but it's his glowing yellow eyes that make my stomach drop. Red. If eyes glow, they're supposed to be red. Vampire eyes are red. Always red. Except when they're the eyes of a different kind of vampire. Holy shit, I breathe, barely more than a whisper. Mason, is this a... My eyes shift over to Mason, and I actually look at him for the first time since racing in. There's blood on his chin, on his lips. It's dried like it's been forgotten about for an hour. The look in his eyes. Mason has always been confident, always been calm. But he is neither of those right now. He looks terrified, horrified even. Mason, I say, my voice wavering just slightly. I consider taking another step toward him, but the way the man with the yellow eyes is looking at me, like he wants to tear me limb from limb, I stay put. Is this... I shake my head. I can hardly find the words. I've been in this vampire world for damn near close to a year, but this is something new for me. Is this a bitten? Shit, Juliet. Mason breathes. I screwed up. I look back over at the man with the glowing yellow eyes. From his business attire, I assume he works here in the building. There are hundreds of employees who come and go every day from Godfrey Tower. He sniffs, his nostrils actually flaring. I need, he says, his voice rough and uneven. Shit, what is that smell? And why do I want it so bad? He tries to take a step forward, and my knees bend just a little, prepared to try and restrain him, so he doesn't go out to and kill someone, or make another like him. Actually, I don't know if that's a thing or not. This is completely unknown territory for me. But only the man's upper body moves slightly. It's as if his feet are glued in place. And he seems exceptionally annoyed at this. I told him he had to stay here, Mason says, his voice quivering just a little. I've always heard about the commands, the debt, but I never... He shakes his head. He looks over at the man, and he looks afraid. Okay, I know I'm a council member, and I've dealt with plenty of complicated shit during my time in Chicago, but this, I feel like I'm in way over my head. I pull my phone out and fire off a text to the first person who comes to mind with this weird, unique situation. John. I need you. Can you come to Godfrey Tower? Now? Mason's penthouse. He replies immediately. On my way. Okay, I say, as I slip my phone back into my pocket. I need you to explain what happened. Really spell it out, 'cause this... I shake my head, once again feeling overwhelmed. I've never even seen this shit before. Mason finally unfreezes and crosses to the couch. He sinks onto it and braces his elbows on his knees, lacing his fingers back into his frazzled hair, his head hanging. I was working from home today, Mason begins. After being out of commission for 5 days, and with Elena unconscious, I had an inconceivable amount of work to catch up on. Okay, understandable. When we were together, not really together, he worked nonstop. We really needed to get this contract signed and sent off. It being late is going to potentially cost us $3 million, he says, and I hear his frustration rising in his voice. He looks up, and his eyes are bloodshot, embers sparking in them. His emotions are heightened as a vampire. He could react any moment, still a newborn with poor self-control. I drank 8 blood bags before I let Jason bring up the paperwork. Jason, poor Jason. And Patrick let him in? I ask, annoyed. Where the hell is he? Bad timing? Mason says, cringing. He had gone down to pick up the food we ordered, and I think I lost my mind a little bit, because as soon as I smelled Jason, I revoked Patrick's access to the penthouse. He's probably trying to scale the building right now. Shit, I mutter, shaking my head. The idiot should have known better than to leave a newborn vampire unattended in a building full of potential victims, even if it was just for a few minutes to go pick up food. Mason nods, and I don't know that he's ever looked so pale. And it has nothing to do with him now being a creature of the night. Jason knocked just 2 minutes after Patrick left. I swear, Juliet, I did everything I could to make sure I was in control. But the second I opened the door, the second I smelled his blood, the bloodlust took over. And you had some control, I fill in, based off the little I do know about the bitten. But not enough. I stopped, Juliet, he says, and his tone sounds desperate. He shakes his head. I knew I had to stop, and I did, but then he just collapsed, and for a second I thought I killed him. But his heart kept beating, kind of, and then 30 minutes later, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to do this to him. I look back at Jason. He's still breathing hard, his chest rising and falling rapidly, his eyes glowing, wild and feral. He smells different. It's hard to describe. Vampires smell. Well, I can't describe that either. Humans smell like the best meal I've ever had. But Jason, he doesn't smell like either. Mason, Roman made it pretty damn clear what happens if you create a bitten, I say, as the cold realization hits me. I'm painfully aware, Mason says, his voice quivering with fear and self-hatred. Creating a bitten is explicitly forbidden. And an instant death sentence. You're a council member, I say as I start to pace. My fingers naturally rise to lace into my hair as my stress levels begin to rise. There's no way Roman is going to kill you over this. Besides, he's currently locked up. We have some time before he'll ever know. Mason curses and drops his head into his hands. He looks so defeated, so different from the confident, kind man I'm used to. Why is he just standing there? I ask, eyeing the newly created bitten with caution. He sure as hell looks like he doesn't want to be. It's the debt, Mason says, resolved. I told him to. He can't help it. Literally? I ask, raising a doubtful eyebrow. Jump up and down 5 times and then do a somersault, Mason says, looking at Jason. And without hesitation, Jason bends his knees and then jumps. He repeats it 4 more times. And then, just like a little kid, he tucks and rolls over in a perfect somersault. Shit, I breathe out, shaking my head. What the hell do we do with him? Mason asks, looking totally at a loss. He can't stay in the city. He'll expose himself too quickly. And Roman would absolutely lose his shit if he knew there was a bitten in Chicago. The stressed, selfish, snarky parts of me wants to scoff, we? I didn't make this problem. But maybe I did, at least a little bit. I should have made sure Mason had better control before releasing him. I should have known he might potentially do something like this. I well remember how powerful the bloodlust was when I first resurrected. But I also rode in a plane with him trapped inside with me just an hour after I resurrected. Apparently, my expectations of others is unrealistic. We've got some time, I say, still pacing. I'm going to get Roman released somehow, but for now, he's taken care of while he's still in custody. Wait, Mason says, shaking his head. Roman was arrested? Apparently, it didn't hit the first time I mentioned it. Yeah, I answer, pressing my palms into my eyes. Just when I felt like a few things were handled for a few seconds, another wrench was thrown into the cogs. While you were dead, Superintendent Day issued a search warrant of Roman's apartment at the club. They found blood. And then it came back as Sebastian's and his. Mason curses again.
I'm so sorry, Juliet. I can't imagine how that felt, shouldering everything by yourself.
I nod. Yeah. The breakdown I had that night left me groveling on Sebastian's voicemail for help. An all-time low. So, yeah, at least we have a couple of days, I guess, to figure out what to do with the bitten. There's a knock at the door then. I hold up a finger to Mason, the wait for a second signal, and walk down the entryway to open the door.
What's wrong?
John asks, his eyes instantly scanning the space behind me for danger. Oh, this one is a doozy, I say, letting out a sigh. And I've never dealt with this situation, so I'm not exactly sure what to do. We step into the living area, and at the newcomer, Jason lets out a feral roar, once more trying to lunge, but he can't move from his spot.
Shit,
John roars, shock and anger instantly taking over his face.
You created a bitten. I swear, I didn't mean to,
Mason says, the guilt tearing him apart.
I thought I stopped soon enough.
It's like I see John transform before my eyes. The calm, supportive, wonderful man I've barely begun to know sloughs away, and the dangerous pirate he was for more than a century emerges. I barely see it happen. A snarl rips from John, terrifying and all-consuming. And then he darts forward. I hear a wet, crunching sound, John's mouth going to Jason's throat. There's another wet sound, meatier. Jason lets out a wet gasp, his yellow eyes flying wide. John whips his head to the side, spitting out a chunk of dripping, wet flesh. Jason's throat. John yanks his hand back, and I all too well recognize the sound of a heart being ripped from a body. A scream leaps out of me. It all happens so fast. Jason collapses to the floor in a puddle of blood. John! His name rips from me in a horrified gasp. My hand covers my mouth, smothering another scream. Mason startles to his feet with a roar, but he doesn't get any closer. What? What? What the hell just happened? My father looks back at us over his shoulder. His own eyes are violently red, black veins spreading out over his scarred face. And I'm reminded of what our kind is capable of. Vampires have power. Vampires are predators. Vampires are immeasurably dangerous.
You should have known better,
John growls, his voice hardly human.
Their kind, they have no control, and the way they can be manipulated.
You just killed him, I yelp out, still entirely shocked. John.
You don't understand, Juliet,
he says, shaking his head. He lifts a hand, dragging the back of it along his mouth, wiping the blood. There's something dark in his eyes, maybe a little violent.
The bitten, they're a threat to the entire population.
He was just a man, Mason says. His eyes are wide. He's even paler than before. He's trembling and can't tear his eyes away from Jason's body lying dead on the floor.
You can't just go making bitten when you don't understand the danger they put everyone in,
John says, the muscles in his jaw tensing. I've never seen that look in his eyes. I've never seen such raw intensity coming from him. Why? I ask, my voice hoarse. Why would you just do that without taking 2 seconds to come up with any other solution? John walks into the kitchen, leaning over the sink. He turns the water on, puddling it in his hand before he washes his face off. He scrubs at his beard, rinsing his neck and the drips that run down it. There are splatters of blood on his shirt, but there's nothing to be done about them. Finally, he straightens, grabbing a hand towel from the hook next to the sink. He dries himself, and by the time he turns back around, the black veins have disappeared from around his eyes, and the red glow is fading.
I had just gotten into port in France,
he begins explaining as he stands above Jason's lifeless body, looking down at the man.
I had met Louis Ducasse the previous year. He was an ambitious vampire. He wasn't born a noble, but he swore he would gain titles all on his own. I'd been worried about the man before. But when I got back...
John shakes his head. I still stand there, completely frozen, still trying to process the swift death I just witnessed.
France was in the beginnings of a revolutionary war,
John continues. His eyes slide up to meet mine, and once again, I'm nearly breathless at the history a vampire can witness if they just live long enough.
Louis instigated much of it, because in his quest to gain power, he'd created an army that couldn't do anything but obey him.
Goosebumps instantly flash over my arms, and the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end.
Louis was using them, and they were doing incredibly bad, horrible things,
John says. There's darkness in his eyes, darkness that hints that things were so much worse than he's depicting right now.
Death, power, money, women. He used his bitten to carry out his evil will, and his army followed his every command. No matter if they wanted to or not, they carried out his orders.
John walks across the penthouse to the floor-to-ceiling windows. He stares out into the darkening night. The sun set 30 minutes ago, and now it's just the twinkling of lights out there.
The royal houses are tasked with keeping vampires under control. King Cyrus values secrecy over all else. So, when the House of Emile, the one that is based in and rules over France, got word, they came with force.
John clasps his hands behind his back. I note the scars there. There are dozens of them.
Louis tried to use his army to keep the royals at bay,
he continues.
But they were uncoordinated. They could never hold their own against the Born. Enora Emile came, and with her house members, they slaughtered the bitten, and they blended it right in with the war, no one the wiser.
War. It's such a foreign concept. It's something I've never witnessed, except in the news in countries that nearly feel like another planet. But John has lived through it and has the scars to prove it.
Louis was on the run, desperately trying to escape the royals and the retribution they promised.
John continues.
For 3 months, he fled into the country, but the House of Emile never once stopped pursuing him. He created more bitten along his way, sacrificing them, sending them to fight, to throw the royals off. Hundreds of men died because of Louis. Hundreds more died at those bitten's hands. But finally, the day before Christmas, the royals cornered Louis at the dock, where my own ship was moored.
I see John's reflection in the window. His expression is haunted. It's dark. His eyes echo the horror of what he lived through.
The members of the House of Emile ripped Louis's fingers from his hands, one by one. They fed each of his toes to wild dogs. And then they gathered the last 4 remaining bitten he'd created. They made Louis command those bitten to eat him.
Mason curses, and my stomach rolls. A vampire can only be killed by beheading or being pierced through the heart. That man was slowly eaten alive, one bite at a time, by his own horrific creations. And it wouldn't kill him.
You don't understand the savagery the royals are capable of,
John says as he looks over his shoulder at Mason.
If the House of Alloway got word of you creating bitten, they could punish you however they see fit, and I can assure you, Charles and Chelsea Alloway are absolutely depraved in their own ways. Chelsea killed her own mother so the 2 of them could take control, and she never shed a single tear for the woman.
John turns around once more and folds his arms over his chest.
The House of Emile finally got tired of Louis's endless screams. Enora ripped his head clean from his shoulders and put it on display at the banquet table at a celebration that night, after they disposed of his remaining bitten.
My entire body feels cold. My skin is crawling. My scalp tingles, and there's a hint of fear in the back of my throat.
Don't you ever lose control like that again,
John says darkly, as he looks at Mason with an even darker expression.
Nothing will put Chicago in more danger than their creation.
I stand there stunned, completely wordless as John turns and walks back to the entryway, and then wordlessly slams the door closed behind him. My eyes slide back over to meet Mason's. He stares at me, trembling. I feel like I've dealt with a lot of insanity since I became a vampire, but I have no idea. It's been child's play. It's been emotional drama and a madman who wasn't even a vampire. It was being hunted by a singular vampire with a vendetta. I've never seen war. I've never had royalty command I be eaten alive. I've never stood in the king's castle and watched as he slit 3 women's throats, hoping they'd be his resurrected queen. I've been a vampire for 10 months. I'm no one. I've had an easy ride. I'm an infant. Let's get this cleaned up, I say through a thick throat. With stiff, awkward movements, Mason stands to help me take care of the body. Chapter 15. Alone in the dark, I walk back to the hospital. I'm sure Mason is too scared shitless to ever screw up like that again. Patrick is back on duty, access to the penthouse restored, and this time, I'm sure he'll do a better job of babysitting. No distractions or quick runs. But I have more work to do. It's icy outside. The midnight air is nearing sub-zero temperatures. But I don't feel the cold. I feel numb as I walk past dark buildings and empty alleyways. Do I really have a very narrowed view of what the vampire world is like? Do I truly just not understand? We have plenty of drama here in Chicago, no doubt about that. But Mason and Elena called this city a safe haven for our kind. I can't say it's felt particularly safe since I came to be a resident, but maybe it is compared to everywhere else. What would it be like, worrying about the royals constantly, having to keep yourself in check so you don't bring down their wrath? Or worse, this king I've been hearing about. Here in Chicago, I don't feel like I have to answer to anyone, but maybe that's privilege speaking. I'm a council member, and when I wasn't an official council member, I was tied to others. But there are hundreds of others in the city who aren't leaders, and they do indeed answer to the council. Guess no matter how hard they try to make things better, different, in the end, this city is nearly just the same. I've witnessed Roman's brutality when others break the rules, putting the other residents in danger. I've watched the gifted look to Sigrid for advice. Mason and Elena employ dozens of vampires to keep them as functioning members of society. I might not have any kind of royal title. We might not be divided into houses, but we have clear divisions and purposes. Employment, the gifted, security, health and blood. Are we any different from those monsters John just told us about? I don't feel the cold, but I do feel the tingle as my skin warms back up when I step through the doors to the hospital. It's quiet in here. The majority of the employees have gone home for the day. It's a minimal crew of doctors and nurses keeping everyone alive and assisting through the dark hours of the night. There's something comforting about being wrapped in quiet in a place that is normally busy. I walk down the hall to my office, not bothering to close the door behind me because who is around to disturb me? Sinking into my chair at my desk, I pull the daily report toward me. Every day, the lab is testing things. We're still desperately looking for a solution, a way to wake the vampires up, a way to restore what was frozen in the gifted. I think in a few days, we'll have a clear picture of how this happened. But fixing it. I let out a sigh, combing my fingers back through my hair. It's been a damn stressful day. I'd really like to go home and sink into that amazing bathtub and tune out the world. Instead, I spin in my chair and take 2 bags of blood from the mini fridge in the corner. I down the first, though, to be honest, it tastes revolting. I'd really like something fresh. It feels like it's been forever. But after witnessing what just happened with Mason and that bitten, I don't know if I'll drink fresh ever again. Is the risk really worth it? I spin in my seat and scoot back to the desk, downing the second bag. My brows furrow in surprise and confusion when the phone on my desk begins to ring. It's the middle of the night. No one is at reception directing calls. The only way this phone would be ringing is if someone knew my direct extension. Knowing it can only be bad news, I reach for the phone and press it to my ear. "This is Dr. Doe?"
Juliet.
Every one of my insides and all of my blood disappears in an instant. Sebastian. There are 4 long, heavy seconds where neither of us says a word. I hear him breathe, and he listens to the sound of my own breath. After everything that has happened between us, what is either of us supposed to say?
"I don't regret what I did,"
he begins, and his first chosen words instantly knot my stomach.
"I did what I thought was best, what I thought was most necessary to protect you. But I do regret that it made you hate me, and that my choices are still hurting you."
It's all it takes, and it speaks to how much I did love this man. Emotions instantly well in my throat, and tears burn the backs of my eyes. "Your actions hurt a lot of people, Sebastian," I point out. "Elena, Sigrid, dozens of others. And now Roman is in jail because the new superintendent thinks he killed you, that the 2 of us were having an affair." The silence from Sebastian speaks volumes. "I never looked at Roman that way," I say, hating that I feel like I have to defend myself to this man. "We were never anything but enemies until you did what you did. He gave me an out, and there was never, ever anything more." There are 2 more beats of silence, and I know he's evaluating if he believes me. But another thought instantly sparks in my brain. Roman is in jail because he's a suspect in the disappearance or suspected murder of Sebastian. I need proof to get him out of jail, to get this investigation dropped. I grab my cell phone and pull up the voice memos. I hit record and switch my desk phone to speaker.
"Perhaps you were not in on what was going on, but Roman has been watching you, obsessing over you since the minute you came to Chicago,"
Sebastian finally continues. I shake my head. "Not that it really matters at this point, but you're wrong. Roman showed nothing but disdain and annoyance toward me. He may have shown a surprising amount of sympathy and compassion once you lost your mind, but there was never any hint of what you're accusing."
"Sweet blind Juliet,"
Sebastian says in that purring voice of his.
"Roman will eventually get what he deserves. But this isn't why I called."
My heart rate picks up, and nervous sweat makes my palms tingle. "Please, Sebastian, tell me how to fix what you've done." I know most of this conversation won't make sense to Teresa Day, but I have to know. I have to get answers.
"The antidote is in a fridge in labor and delivery,"
he says, casually but begrudgingly.
"For the vampires and the gifted. But you're going to have to disconnect the source that's causing it."
"I've already taken care of that," I say. Adrenaline is spiking in my body, and it's taking everything I have in me not to bolt from my seat and go straight to that fridge. "We've been testing human blood. It's been out of their systems for a week now." I don't know how. It's impossible, but somehow I can sense the smile on his lips.
"You're a smart woman, Juliet. Just one of the many reasons I fell in love with you."
There's pain in his voice. There was never a part of me that doubted Sebastian loved me. I felt it in every core part of my being. Sebastian Vincent loved me, and that love consumed me, the both of us. But it transformed from love to complete obsession.
It is administered intravenously.
He carries on when I do not respond. His tone is resolved.
It should take about an hour to take effect. The gifted should have full access to their gifts within 24 hours. The vampires won't feel very good for a day or two, but they'll restore to full capabilities.
Thank you, Sebastian, I say with a breath, and tears of relief are gathering in my eyes. I expected this to be so much harder. I expected to have to beg and manipulate him. This means everything to me.
I'd do anything for you, Juliet,
he says softly, and I don't doubt the sincerity in his voice. And that was our downfall. Where are you? I ask, and there's still a tiny ache in my chest that hurts at our separation, at the fracture my soul suffered by us falling apart.
You don't need to know that,
he says, his words quiet and regretful. Are you safe? I don't know why those are my next words.
It doesn't matter anymore,
he says, and something in his tone makes me worry.
I really am sorry, Juliet. If I could do it all over again, I would. You and I were made for each other. I will always regret what my actions did to us.
Sebastian, But he hangs up, ending the call. And once more, I'm left in the wreckage, my heart a shredded, bleeding mess. I end my recording as the first tear slips down my cheek. I swallow once, feeling like most of the oxygen in the world has disappeared. But I stand and walk out into the hall. I take the stairs up one floor. The wing is quiet, only one mother and baby resting after what I hope was a peaceful delivery. A nurse is at the desk, but I don't say anything to her as I walk into the storage room. There, I see the fridge. Sebastian was smart in hiding the antidotes here. No one ever would have thought to go looking in this department. I open the fridge, and my hands go a little numb when I see dozens of vials on the bottom shelf. One tray has a label that reads GA. The other tray reads VA. Gifted antidote, vampire antidote. My hands are shaking as I reach forward and take the entire tray of vampire antidotes. My fingers wrap around just one vial for the gifted. My feet feel clumsy and heavy as I turn and walk out of the unit. I pull my phone from my pocket and then hold it to my ear. Juliet, what is wrong? Sigrid asks, her voice rough and sleepy. I need you to come to the hospital, I say, excitement lacing through my tone. It's not life-threatening, but it's urgent. I can hear her getting up from bed, searching her room for clothes. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I end the call, too anxious and excited to use my manners. The elevator is too slow. I take the stairs, racing up them two at a time, bursting through the door and hooking down the hall immediately. The room is quiet, resting to the rhythm of the rise and fall of breath and the soft beeps of machinery supporting their organs. And even though no one is awake to see it, I can't help but grin like a fool when I walk to a cart. I load up the first dose and walk over to my best friend's side. Nap time is over, I say, as I locate a good vein and sink the needle into her. I'm done pulling all your weight, girl. I have so damn much to tell you. Because I've decided I'm done holding secrets. I'm done with hiding behind the impossible to believe truths that are my life. I'm telling her. I'm telling Mason everything. As soon as we all get 10 minutes of quiet, we're going to have a big, long talk. Maybe I should take my time with a singular test subject, but I'm too desperate, too anxious. One by one, I begin injecting the antidote into the vampires, some of whom have been unconscious for 2.5 months. There are still 24 doses left when I get to the last patient. Sebastian did plenty of damage, but I think he planned for it to be far more effective than it was. No gifted, no vampires, no threat to Juliet. Those were the words Sebastian wrote down. He planned to take care of every vampire and every gifted in this city. The sound of footsteps in the hall drags my eyes to the door. Just then, Sigrid and Malcolm step into view. Has something happened? she asks, her accent even stronger when she's tired and uncertain. I bite my lower lip to contain my grin and nod. I snatch up the vial labeled GA and walk toward her. Sebastian called me just a few minutes before I called you. Oh, she says, raising a blonde eyebrow. And what did the bastard have to say? My heart is hammering. I'm a mess of complicated emotions right now. Rage, uncertainty, hope, excitement, defensiveness. I am a damn mess, and I know I'll probably fall apart from it all at some point. But for now, I have way too much to take care of. He told me where the antidote was, I say, my words coming out soft and hopeful. I hold up the vial so she and Malcolm can see it. I just administered it to all of the vampires. I thought you might want to be the first one to test the one for the gifted. The breath catches in her throat, and instantly, her eyes well. She blinks rapidly, trying to clear them away. But her expression is so hopeful, so disbelieving. I believe Sebastian, I say, and I mean it. I believe it will do what he says it will.
How can you trust him so easily when he did something so evil?
Malcolm asks darkly. My eyes shift over to his, and I get it. I understand his doubt. What Sebastian did is despicable. I just know. It all went so sideways, but I still feel it. I know Sebastian. If he says this is the antidote, this is the antidote. Then let's get to it, Sigrid says. A hopeful smile is tugging in the corners of her mouth. I can only imagine how difficult this has been for her. Her gift is part of her identity. It's also part of her job. The security of this city has taken a hit with the loss of her gift. I load the dose, and Sigrid takes a seat on a rolling stool. She pulls her sleeve up, and I tap her arm to prime a vessel. I know I should be more doubtful. I know I should be just a little skeptical. What if Sebastian were lying? What if this was going to kill the vampires and the gifted instantly? He took them out and showed no remorse. Malcolm is justified in doubting. Maybe I'm just desperate. But maybe, even though it all went wrong, I know Sebastian. Even now. Do no harm might have been thrown out the window when he tainted the city's water supply. But murder? I can't believe he would go so far. Except when it comes to Roman, who he thought was going after me. So I'm absolutely confident as I pull the needle from Sigrid's arm and put a bandage over it. How long until we know if it's working? She asks, pulling her sleeve back down. Sebastian said about 24 hours, I report as I put the needle into the sharps container. The vampires should start waking up in an hour, though he said they won't feel very good. Shit, speaking of... I pull my phone out and shoot off a text to Dr. Roshan that I'm going to need him here in 30 minutes. I next message Echo that I need as much blood as she has available in 30 minutes as well, and she can bill the hospital. I'd really like you to stay on the premises for the next few hours, I say, as I look up at the clock on the wall. Just to be safe. But I don't think either of you should be in this room when they all start waking up. Do you mind making yourself comfortable in the emergency room until things settle down? Not my first choice, Sigrid says, her nose scrunching just a little in displeasure. But I suppose it is a good idea. I nod, and the three of us head to the elevator. I recorded Sebastian's call, I tell them as we ride down to the main floor. It's the most obvious way I can think to get Roman released, but I think it means that we're going to have to clue in Superintendent Day about everything that really goes on here.
Don't love that idea,
Malcolm admits.
Jerry was easy to work with. This woman, you really want to have her breathing down our necks if she knows the truth?
I don't love it either, I admit. But I don't see a logical way around it. She's young, determined. I think we're going to have to deal with her for a lot of years to come. Besides, I think the council can make her see that there are going to be some things in life she's just going to have to let us deal with. That statement makes me sound and feel like a bully. But sometimes life isn't so black and white. Hopefully, we can have a council meeting very shortly to discuss the possibility, Sigrid says as the elevator opens and we start down the hall. I shake my head. I think it's going to be sooner, like today, so I can get Roman out of jail. The things that were said in the conversation between Sebastian and I, there's not much getting around it. It's the only evidence I have to get Roman released. So the decision is made for us, Sigrid says evenly. I do believe this is the conclusion the council would have eventually ended up at. I guess we can have a condensed meeting right now, I say, as we push through the doors to the emergency room wing. I pull my phone from my pocket and dial Mason. Can you come to the hospital right now? I ask, as soon as he answers. What's wrong? He asks. This is how way too many of my requests are answered. Can you come? I repeat. Be there in 3 minutes. Ah, the nighttime is so accommodating. There is no possible way to get from there to here in 3 minutes, except at vampire speed when no one can watch. I find an available room and usher Sigrid and Malcolm inside. I have a brief but enthusiastic conversation with Diana about what I hope is going to happen shortly. She is, understandably, completely shocked and totally elated. By the time I'm finished explaining, Mason walks into the room, and I get to start all over again. You're serious? He asks when I've gotten through the first part. Elena is going to wake up in an hour? In about 15 minutes, actually, if Sebastian is right, I say, glancing at the clock. But, yes. He blinks 3 times, his hands coming to cover his mouth. I watch the sun dawn in his eyes. I see something ease in them. This is something I'll never have. The love for a sibling. This kind of lifelong bond. But the other reason I called you is that we all need to make a decision, I say. I pull my phone out and press play on my recording. Shit, Mason says as soon as he hears Sebastian's voice. He called? I nod. Told me where the antidotes were. But this is our proof for Superintendent Day that Sebastian isn't dead and is alive and well. It's how we get Roman released. But Mason hears the words being said in that conversation. His eyes darken, the set of his lips thinning out. I think we have to tell Superintendent Day about what's really going on in this city, I say. My stomach tightens with nerves. I don't see any other way to get Roman out. Mason holds my gaze, and I can see the gears turning in his head. This isn't a decision to be made lightly. It could make our lives infinitely harder. But an innocent man, one of our own, is locked up. How long has it been since Roman last drank? How long until he has to drink again, and his only options will be his fellow inmates? It's going to have to happen eventually, Mason finally answers. He stands just a little straighter, and his confidence is just one of the many things that drew me to him. Jerry was clued in for years. We can't always give explanations that will make sense to any other human. I think we need to go as a council and tell her what's really going on. I nod, and Mason's eyes slide over to Sigrid. She looks hesitant, nervous, but she nods her head just once. All right, I say, as once more I pull my phone out and hold it up to my ear. I'll get us a meeting. It's not even 3 a.m. The reception desk sets me an appointment for just an hour after Teresa gets in 5 hours. Come on, I say to Mason. Let's go wait for Elena to wake up. Sigrid, call me if anything feels wrong. I will, she agrees. I'm practically bouncing on the balls of my feet as Mason and I work our way down the hall. So much is about to happen. So much of it is exciting, anticipated for way too long now. But then there's the part that's hard. The part that makes me feel like I'm an actual council member, because if I weren't, I'd so much rather shy away from the deep stuff.
John was right,
Mason says as we ride the elevator up a floor.
You were born for this. Only 7 weeks on the council and you're making calls for the betterment of the city.
Does it always feel this scary? I ask. Making decisions that might affect so many people's lives?
You already do that every day,
he points out.
You're a doctor, Juliet. You make life and death decisions all the time. Trust your intuition.
My intuition has led me to do some pretty questionable, reckless things in the past. But he's right. I do need to trust myself. I'm not the same person I was as a stupid teenager. I'm not the same clueless, self-centered person I was when I first came to Chicago. I'm not even the same person I was last week when I always had a backup person to fall on. Good old Mason. He always knows exactly what to say and when to say it. We walk back into the vampire ward, and I know the second I step inside that something is different. They're breathing better, I say. I walk up to a monitor that's hooked up to Elena. Heartbeat is more regular. Temperature is normal. It's working. I can't help but grin like an idiot as I walk down the row, finding the exact same results on every one of the vampires. Right then, Dr. Roshan steps inside.
Holy shit,
he breathes, because he can hear it instantly as well. I know, I say with a nod and a grin. The antidote, it's actually working. They should start waking up in the next few minutes. And, as if on cue, Echo walks through the door, a massive insulated bag slung over her shoulder. You really found the cure? She asks, doubtful. She always has a sour expression on her face, but I'm beginning to realize that it's just her dark personality. Literally found, I explain without explaining, though Sebastian had to tell me where to look. But yeah, they're all about to wake up. In that exact moment, Elena suddenly rolls onto her side and vomits right onto the floor. I'm at her side in an instant, holding onto her so she doesn't fall off the bed. Tears instantly well in my eyes, and as I look up at Mason, poised on her other side, I see he's filled with just as many emotions.
Elena,
he says, reaching for her. She flops back onto her back, placing her palm against her forehead. She looks like shit, and I've never seen her look like anything less than a goddess before.
What the hell is going on?
Oh, just miraculously waking from a coma we thought was incurable, I say, reverting back to the only language I know when things get tough and heavy, sarcasm. It really shouldn't be a big deal. I don't know why you're acting like such a baby. She makes to take a swing for me, but the strength hasn't fully returned to her muscles yet. Instead, a weary smile pulls at her lips, and her arm flops back to the bed. I hear a groan behind me and turn to see Tabitha awake, and then throw up on the floor. 2 others follow her within seconds. Lovely. We're about to be swimming in puke.
Look at you going and being the ultimate boss babe,
Elena says as her blue eyes meet mine.
Curing a bunch of vampires.
I want to correct her. It wasn't me. I really didn't do anything in the end. But bringing up Sebastian in this moment doesn't sound very exciting. I'm so damn glad you're back, I say, squeezing her hand. Can you tell me how you're feeling right now? I need to know what we're dealing with. She groans again, and her eyes slide closed.
My stomach feels half rotten. My entire body hurts, like when I had a fever when I was still human. And I'm really, really thirsty.
Echo, I say, calling her over. She stops at my side and drops the bag at her feet. She fishes out 2 bags, handing them directly to Elena.
Wait a second,
Elena says, her brows furrowing as her eyes rip from the bagged blood to Mason.
Why don't you smell like a meal? Mason, what happened?
Mason gives a no big deal shrug.
Turns out even corporate billionaires can't stand up to a semi-truck plowing them down.
What? Elena barks in angry disbelief.
I'm fine,
Mason says. that calming tone of his settling his twin sister.
It was going to happen soon enough.
I leave the two of them to argue this out and walk down the aisle. Another vampire rips from slumber and vomits onto the side of the bed. Another pukes before they are even fully awake, and I have to roll them onto their side before they suffocate in it. Okay, this is enough for me, Echo says. She hands me the bag of blood. I'm out. Thank you, I say, and I hope she can tell how much I mean it. She simply gives half a nod and walks out of the room. Damn, I can't blame her. I go to the windows and push them open, trying to get some fresh air flowing in here before I lose it myself. But it's a miracle. One by one, the vampires wake. For too long, I was terrified that I'd never figure it out, that the damage done was irreversible. Yet, here they are, breathing and talking and sitting up. Okay, I say, after a very smelly yet exciting 20 minutes. I think all of you are awake now. I'm met with groans and weak-sounding questions. I know you don't feel so great right now. From what I understand, you can expect it to last a day or two. Considering this has never happened before, I can't make any promises about the long-term effects. Dr. Roshan and I will be checking on all of you, doing some evaluations. I would love to have a follow-up with each of you in a few days here at the hospital, but if everything looks good, I think you're all very anxious to go home. What happened? A woman asks. She is shaking from head to toe, and it's so unnatural to see a vampire look so vulnerable. It's complicated, I say, and my throat feels tight. I feel responsible for what's happened to them. I didn't do it, didn't put all those toxins in the water supply, but Sebastian did. And he did it because he thought it was the only way to keep me safe. We need to have a meeting, Elena says. There are dark circles under her eyes, as if she hasn't slept in a month. But she brings herself into a sitting position with Mason's help. All of you, every supernatural in the city. What day of the week is it? Tuesday, Mason responds. Meet at the Nocturne on Saturday, an hour after sundown, she says. She just awoke from death's door, but she's taking charge like she just woke from a catnap. You'll get your answers, but we also need to celebrate. This tried to take us out, but in the end, we will always prevail. Dress accordingly. A smirk crosses my lips, and I shake my head. Oh, Elena. She's always looking for any excuse to dress up and throw a party. These people deserve answers. Vampires don't get sick, but these people all were, and now are, sick. If I were them, I'd want answers now, too. But it's obvious no one feels up to the task of arguing. I walk down the aisle between the beds, checking on one patient and then the next. I go over their blood pressure, heart rate, temperature. Everything is a little off, but it all seems to be returning to normal. Anything you're noticing to be concerned about? I ask Dr. Roshan as I take an emptied blood bag from another patient. Nothing, he says, his surprise reflected in his tone. Everything seems to be returning to the way it should be. Thank the damn dark. The cleaning crew comes in once everyone has had some blood to drink. Some of them have been out for 2.5 months. They had to be thirsty as the Sahara. But no one seems to have a problem when 2 humans walk in with cleaning supplies and begin taking care of all the vomit. I think you're good to go if you feel up to it, I say to a woman. I loop my stethoscope around my neck and offer her a smile. Everything is looking good to me. Just take it easy for a few days, okay? Thanks, Dr. Doe, she says with a weary smile. Over the course of the next hour, each patient is examined by myself or Dr. Roshan. One by one, they each head out those doors. And it's this feeling that I'll never get over. Healing people, helping them, gives me so much satisfaction, makes me see the value in myself. Those people might have lived the rest of their lives trapped in a coma. So, to watch them walk out on their own, to see them looking well on their way to being normal again, it feels pretty damn good. I need to go home, Elena says as she stands, testing her balance. Immediately, Tabitha is by her side, wobbly knees, ashy face, and all. I feel disgusting, and I can't imagine how much work I have to catch up on, and the party to plan. Well, before you do any of that, we need you to come down to the police station with us, I say, with a slight tilt of my head. Why? She demands, confused. Oh, there's a lot I need to catch you up on, I say. But we need to be to our appointment with the superintendent in 20 minutes, so most of it's going to have to wait until after. Juliet, Elena says, her tone sharp and demanding. Come on, Mason says. He takes his sister's hand and starts toward the door. Juliet has a handle on all this. You just have to trust her. I arch an eyebrow at Elena as she walks past me. I really don't like being out of the loop, she says. I know, I respond. I look back at Dave. You think you can handle whatever crazy thing happens next while I go deal with some council stuff? Go, he says, giving a nod. Chicago needs you, but not here, at least for a few hours. I chuckle, shake my head, and walk out behind the Godfrey twins. I need to check on Sigrid, I say, as I make a detour into the labor and delivery unit. I snatch the vials for the gifted, and all four of us make our way back down to the first floor. It's quiet, not a patient in sight as we walk down the hall of the emergency room. I push the door open, and it's a pretty damn good feeling, seeing the look on both Sigrid and Malcolm's faces when Elena and Tabitha walk in right behind me. It worked, Sigrid says, rising to her feet. She immediately crosses to Elena, taking her in an embrace. You're awake. I've certainly seen better days, Elena says with a smile. But anything beats lying in a coma. I am so happy to see you, Sigrid says, and she just reminds me all over again why I love her so much and took to her immediately. She's warm, caring, genuine. And I have good news, Sigrid continues, her eyes shifting over to me. I can feel it. It is not all the way returned, but I no longer feel numb. My gift is coming back. A relieved, happy laugh escapes my lips, and I rush in to claim my own hug. Finally, things are turning around here. Which means we're celebrating, Elena says. At the Nocturne, just after sundown on Saturday. Please let all the gifted know. Which reminds me, I say, as I reach for the box behind me. I hand it to Sigrid. I don't know if there's more antidote than this. I'll keep a vial to send to the lab so we can duplicate it if need be. But take this. Give it to all the gifted who have been affected. I'll ask Lily to go with you. Malcolm takes the box from Sigrid. Thank you, Juliet, she says softly. I nod. All right, I have to get out of here. Time to spring our last council member from jail. Go. I will see you later, Sigrid says.